Okay, so I am incredibly happy that console owners are finally getting to see what 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, et cetera, looks like. But I also want to talk about sort of this perception that 30 frames per second is bad or unacceptable, and why I don't necessarily agree with that, but I wanted to get your take on it too. So let's go over it. Okay, everybody, the video is going to start in just a second, but I want to let you know that I am raising money all June for St. Jude Children's Hospital. St. Jude is helping cure cancer and other rare diseases found in children. I've set a goal of $1,000 for the month. And just a little bit about St. Jude. So in my notes here, I said treatment invented at St. Jude have helped push the overall childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to more than 80% since it opened more than 50 years ago. And their mission statement is to advance cures and means of prevention for pediatric catastrophic diseases through research and treatment. Now, I really think this is a good cause. Hopefully we can do some good here. And this is just a small way that I hope to give back after the channel has kind of blown up in popularity. Some of the things, $10 will give a kid a new toy and play areas. If we get to $250, that will give a family a meal card for a week worth of food in the hospital's cafeteria. And $500 will actually give somebody a bone marrow treatment. So I think those are really, really great goals. And I'm really, really excited to see how this goes. I know I'm going to be donating. Hopefully you'll consider donating also. If not, just enjoy the content. Let's do some good and on with the video. So right away, and I'm not going to really talk about one aspect of it because I can't really speak to it. A new phenomena has popped up. A lot of people have been saying they get really motion sick when they play 30 FPS games. Now, I had never heard of a motion sickness issue in any of the eras, but I don't want to I don't want to take a stance that makes me sound like I don't believe them or anything like that. It's just a new factor into the conversation I hadn't considered in the past. And I think it's important to be open-minded about that stuff. So if you get motion sickness playing 30 FPS games, that I get. That sucks. What I'm curious about is the whole idea that 30 frames per second games just are lesser or not as good is really, really interesting to me. So basically, what a developer will probably do, and I'm going to do a lot of paraphrasing. I'll do my best to think about this with you. What a developer will do is they'll utilize 30 frames per second so that they can do more stuff with the engine, because you're literally only pushing half the amount of frames than you would with 60. I think a really good example of a game that was able to have a 30 FPS mode and a 60 FPS mode was Spider-Man Miles Morales. You can go watch my performance review on that, where I sort of break down what they were able to do with 30 FPS versus 60 FPS. And later on, they actually went back. Insomniac went back and patched it so you could have a 60 FPS mode at a lower base resolution, but a lot of the bells and the whistles, like the ray tracing effects that you got with the 30 FPS mode. And I actually call that out in the performance review. It was cool that they went back and made that tweak. But the idea that 30 FPS games aren't as good, I don't really understand that argument. I prefer higher frame rate. I'll just say that. Like, if the option is there to have a 60 FPS game, I prefer that, even if the base resolution is like 1080. Like a game like Returnal, I want to play that at lock 60 or as close to 60, something that has snappy responses. But some of the games that have been 30 have been pretty phenomenal. Red Dead Redemption 2 ran at 30. The entire Mass Effect trilogy, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, all were 30 FPS games, and I would argue that Mass Effect 1 was more like a 20 FPS game for a lot of it. Sorry, BioWare, but you had some optimization issues. It was an early game, so of course they fixed that later. The new games run buttery smooth, by the way. Last of Us 1 and 2 initially launched at 30 frames per second. I think like all of the Ratchet and Clank games were 30 frames per second. A lot of the Grand Theft Auto games were 30 frames per second. Grand Theft Auto 5 has some next-gen optimizations that I believe allow it to go up to 60. Don't quote me on that. I'm just guessing. The original Horizon Zero Dawn also ran at 30. A lot of games have native 4K options at 30 and are able to do more tech at 30 frames per second. So the question I want to pose to you is, Why is there a reaction that all games have to be 60 FPS minimum? Um, if there's, I think it's my opinion that if you can add the option to your game to do a 60 FPS mode, I think that's becoming a standard expectation for consumers. And we see this a lot with PlayStation games. So, Polygon has an article saying that the new Ratchet and Clank is going to run at 60. Spider-Man, had a 30 and a 60 option. Frame rate is really important to consumers right now, and stability of frame rate is also a consideration that should be taken into account. I would actually agree with that. I agree that the option should be there for 30 versus 60. And with the Horizon Forbidden West video that recently came out, a lot of people are like, this isn't 30 frames per second. What are you doing? I I can't think of a PlayStation game first party that hasn't given you the option yet. So I would almost bet that Gorilla is going to go ahead and make sure there's a 60 FPS option, especially after the outcry for a 60 FPS game. But my question to you sort of is, why do you think we're hearing about this now? Do you think it's because more people, especially those who only have played on console, have gotten to play at 60 frames per second, and now it's hard to go back? Because that was definitely my experience. Like once I went to PC, and I remember when the whole conversation started before the consoles were out. Like I'm talking on Unlocked and I'm talking on all these shows, and as a PC gamer and somebody that's been playing at a lot of games at a higher frame rate, I'm like, 60 FPS is going to be really, really important to people. I don't even think they realize that. And there were people arguing with me vehemently. They're like, I want my games at 30. 30 FPS is the best experience possible. And if you're not aware, like a lot of movies are 24 frames per second. There are a few outliers, but most movies, that's just what they're shot at. They're shot at 24. It just gives the movie a bit of a different feel. Same thing with games. And I think the game examples that I give, like Zelda, Red Dead, Mass Effect, Last of Us, Ratchet, GTA, Horizon Zero Dawn, those are all largely story based with mechanics of combat built in. So I don't necessarily know that you need that like Twitch response that 60 FPS helps get you to. And then inversely, I totally understand why people like 60 and want that as an option. I want that as an option in all my games too. If I could play every game at 60, I absolutely would. But what I think the conversation veers into is 30 FPS is unplayable. And I'm like, that's just not true. There have been plenty of examples of 30 FPS games that are phenomenal games. But if you say, I don't prefer 30, I prefer 60, that I understand. It's when the internet, of course, gets a little bit hyperbolic and just says, I can't play at 30. I'm like, we've been playing at 30 frames per second. I would say most of the last era games were 30. A lot of the shooters dipped their base resolution down to push to 60, like Call of Duty would do that. That's an example off the top of my head. And there's ways that you can make it run at 60, but you always have to sacrifice something to make that happen. And the whole reason I'm making this video, I just kind of wanted to pose the question to you: what frame rate do you prefer? Do you actually think that games are unplayable at 30? That's something I don't agree with, but I'd like to talk about it more in the comments below. And I don't want to disparage anybody that gets motion sickness. So for me, I mean, like, I can't really argue with you. If you say you get motion sickness at 30 frames per second, what am I going to say? Deal with it? Like, that's incredibly rude, right? No, you get motion sickness. So that's an accessibility issue. And hopefully developers recognize that, hey, now that people recognize that there are options here, they're like, wow, I don't feel nauseous when I play games at 60. That's so weird. Yeah. I have to wonder. I'm really, really curious about that conversation, because I wonder if it's because people who experience nausea are playing games that do not have a locked 30 frame rate, because like, would nausea be caused when they watch movies because movies are shot at 24? I don't know enough about the topic, but it's definitely something that I'm sensitive to. I don't want anybody to get sick when they're playing their games. That sucks. And if you can't play 30 FPS games, I guess you play a lot of shooters in 60 FPS games, right? But anyway, I want to hear, what do you think? What do you prefer your games at? I prefer 60. Are you still in the camp of I really, really love 30 FPS games? I'd love to hear from you. And it is so interesting to see the conversation do a complete flip flop from I want my games at 30. And I'm telling you, a lot of people were saying they prefer 30. They want their games at 30. They feel like it's closer to a cinematic experience. And now I feel like it's totally the opposite. The conversation is every game should have a 60 FPS option, no matter what. 30 FPS is literally unacceptable. And then a lot of people pointing out also that I didn't get a next gen console to run at 30 FPS. I want like 60. And it's a really interesting reaction that, and that's why I'm making this video, you know? It's not really, I don't think there's a wrong answer to the question. Some games, yes, they are great at 30 frames per second. Would they benefit from 60? They absolutely would, because they speak to this whole group of players that prefer to play their games at 60. Should it be standardized? Honestly, I think the option to standardize a 60-30 FPS option would be incredibly smart to game designers. If it's if it's easy enough to do, why not, right? More accessibility for people to play games. Sure, do it. Yeah, dip it down to 900, whatever you got to dip it down to make sure you get that 60 FPS. If people really want that, sure, why not? It's, yeah, I don't know. It's just sort of an interesting conversation. Man, this video might suck. I don't even know if anyone's going to care about it, but I think it's a cool conversation, right? I like talking about frame rates and such, and I would never dare say that you can't even tell the difference, because you definitely can tell the difference between 30 and 60. That is not something I would ever say. Thank you for watching. I feel like this video is weird. This video is more of a question of me to you saying, hey, there's been a lot of phenomenal Game of the Year 30 FPS games. I like the having the option of 60. Do you think, that's what I'll title the video. I'm working through this in real time, you guys. Do you think all games should have a 60 FPS option? Should all games have a 60 FPS option? Maybe that's what I'll call it, and have this conversation with you. Anyway, I hope you like these late night rambles. This was an extra rambly one. Well, people seem to like it, so I'm not apologizing anymore. Thank you so much for watching. I look over here, by the way, because my notes are here. Sometimes they're over here, and that's why I don't look at the camera sometimes. As the channel grows, I think we're nearing 60,000 people. I'm starting to get into that point, getting to that point where people are criticizing more about what I do with these vlogs. Oh, I wore the headset this time. This is the headset to my computer. This, fun fact, I think this is the first time I've worn the headset for one of these, and it was absolutely accidental. I just had it on because I was editing the day's video. Wow. Okay. Yeah, so we're nearing 60,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. The channel is blowing up more than I ever expected, and frankly, I don't really know what to do about it. I just keep recording these late night videos, talking about things going on in the industry, but now people are like, hey, you're talking about Sony a lot this week. I don't like that, because I'm assuming they prefer to hear the Xbox stories, or they don't like the correlations I'm making, or, hey, you only talk about Xbox. Where are the Sony stories? And I'm like, guys, I'm going to talk about whoever's got the most news coming out. So that, I think that's what you can expect from me. Sometimes I record a few videos at once and put them out, but I hope I can keep this thing going. I've had a really, really good time making these videos and just hanging out, talking with you. There's not really, I've posted a video every single day for like 2 months, every single day. And the reason I keep going is because of the crazy amount of support that I've seen in the comments. I've never had a comment section be this kind and understanding. And as we get larger, I don't want to lose that, right? Because if it's just going to be constantly, just keep it constructive, right? Like, let's keep having these conversations. And I'm going to be doing the live streams more regularly, because that went so well. That the VOD did like 10,000. We had great interaction during the stream. So I'm just like, well, let's just do more of those. And I am definitely on a tangent this one. Jeez. Thank you for watching. Like, look, I'm so humbled. I never expected the channel to do 60,000 subscribers, you guys. So just thank you. I thought I would do a few vlogs, like 1 or 2 vlogs a week. I had a goal for the year to do 52 videos a year. I've already completed that goal and it's May. I have a YouTube channel that's just like blowing up bigger than I ever expected. I never expected this. So thank you. And I'm gonna keep trying to do a video every day until I can't, until I miss a day because you've been so wonderful. Thank you. Road to 100K. Let's get there. If you watch these and you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for joining me for these conversations. I hope you enjoy it during your morning coffee or whatever you may be doing. I hope you have a great, wonderful day. There are memberships turned on. Thank you so much. The memberships blew up over the weekend. Yeah, I recorded like 3 videos and I did a live stream over the long break, and membership sort of blew up. So if you want to do the membership thing, you can click the join button. Memberships are a thing YouTube offers to people. And just, wow. I don't know, man. There's just so much going on with the channel that I feel like I need to talk about. Plus I want to make the videos. It's a lot, but it's a lot in a good way. So thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope we have some good conversation in the comments below about 30 versus 60, and I'm going to see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody. My button's really far away.